Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
All right, boss. I think I got all the graphics ready for today.
Okay, looking good. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, sure thing.
Hey, got a question for you.
Okay.
What if all your life, Derek, everything you thought to be true turned out not to be true? Here's the tricky part. When would you want to know about it?
I guess right away.
Good answer.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and four-time author, Tony Walker.
In an attempt to improve my abilities to help savers worry less about money and become the very best retirement planning specialist I can become, over the years I've taken a lot of my own money and personal time to attend literally hundreds of different educational conferences and workshops hosted by others in the field of finance, money, psychology, and yes, even the art of listening to others. And of all the great things I've learned about people and the study of how they view the truth about this old world and the money flowing through it, was this particular question posed by a random presenter at a conference I attended, and it went something like this. What if what you thought to be true all of your life one day turned out not to be true, and when would you want to know about it? It's a powerful question to ask oneself when those truths we have always believed in our heart of hearts turn out maybe not to be true. And nowhere is this sudden event of exposing a falsehood of something once believed to be true falls into the camp of dealing with people, money, and retirement, as we expose some of those half-truths in more detail of what we're calling Financial Law and Order, Part 3. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, financial truth detector and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we get started on exposing what may be true and what may not be true, let me introduce to you two folks in the Worry-Free Retirement Studios who are too good to be true. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, and Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, I'm going to repeat this all-important question by playing a little game with you in regards to a simple math equation. So please, if we can have some music, Aaron. All right, here we go. What if all of your life you had been taught by your parents and teachers in school that 2 plus 2 equals 5? But then a world-famous mathematician tells you that 2 plus 2 is not equal to 5, but rather 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. What would you do? Well, you could do the easy thing and dismiss this person's belief of the truth as false, or consider admitting that all the people you listened to and trusted with this so-called truth might just have been wrong all along. Well, as we'll see, when it comes to the financial world and its many opinions on money and retirement, you've got a whole lot of untruths that force savers to sometimes adopt bad practices and create unnecessary worry, which is why today I'll be sharing with you part 3 of our series called Financial Law and Order. So stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. I'm going to show you how to create a little bit of sleep insurance in your life by following these basic rules of money. We'll be right back. You wouldn't go through major surgery without getting a second opinion, would you? Well, of course not. And neither should you blindly trust your life savings to the first advisor you meet. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and for more than 37 years I've been providing free second opinions, and I'd like to do the same for you. To get your free second opinion, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call the toll-free number on your screen. With more and more people, advisors, miscellaneous outlets, and resources telling you what you need to believe about money and retirement, our question for the day, what if all of your life there was something you believed to be true, but one day turned out not to be true, And here's the key: when would you want to know about it? It's a question savers should constantly ask themselves if they get bombarded with conflicting advice on money and retirement. Advice that people believe is true without any evidence to the contrary. For instance, here's a few examples of dogmatic truths that savers might hear with no evidence of whether such advice is actually true or false. It's always best, for instance, to delay Social Security until age 70. Here's another one: term life insurance is better than whole life. Whatever you do, some people say, stay away from annuities. Here's another one that's on all the time: always invest in growth mutual funds regardless of the risk. And finally, this one we're going to address today: always max out your 401k contributions. So in meeting in person with over 15,000 savers, I've heard it all: questions, the concerns, the sharing with me of what savers have heard, and of course what they've been taught by others regarding the subject of retirement, which sadly in many cases, assuming that what they have been told is the truth, in other words, they believe to be true, which really isn't. For instance, 2 plus 2 is 5. Let's say that's what you've been taught all of your life. We covered this last week, but it really does bear repeating. So if all this time you have believed that 2 plus 2 is 5, and we'll get to what's called average rate of return in a minute, but what if you attended a conference and a famous mathematician said that 2 plus 2 is equal to 4? It's a truth that would have affected you and possibly had some terrible results in terms of not understanding the truth of basic math. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually look at something that I covered in my book, Don't Follow the Herd. And the idea is, what is the average rate of return, and what is the difference between average rate of return and yield? In fact, the reason I wanted to cover this, because as we record our show right now on August 16th, 2022, I was just looking on the internet to see the average rate of return of the stock market the last 20 years, and it's really, really high, which has nothing to do with how much money you can use and enjoy in retirement. Let me use this example again. So what if you thought to be true this? Let's say you invested each year, you invested $100,000, and each year this happened. The first year, the world's truth says that the stock market went up 20%, the next year 20%, and then the third year it went down 20%, okay? So if you just took those three numbers, divided by 3, that would equal 6.7%. In other words, you could say, hey, I averaged 6.7% on my money. Forget the fact about the fees and the future taxes and all this other stuff. This is not correct math, as we'll see. So let's say the real truth, we look at this and we say, well, what if you just averaged 4.8% somewhere each year, and that would be your average return? Well, if you stop there, you said, well, Tony, that's the whole point. This is why I'm taking additional risk, because I want that higher rate of return, that higher average. But that's not what's really in your pocket, because that's not correct math in terms of what you actually made. Let's take a look at that. If you average this out with what's called weighted returns, your actual yield, what you really made by investing money in the stock market in this example, was 4.83, which is the same 4.83 you could have invested on a safe basis. Which leads us to our next point, and that's these darn 401k plans. Now, first of all, let me say this. 401k plans, they're a great way to save money, but there's this whole notion that you need to be contributing all of the money you can in a 401k, and this other faulty notion that sometimes turns out not to be true, and that is when your employer is contributing money to your 401k on your behalf, it's free money. So listen up. If you've got a 401k, 403b, thrift savings plan, or even a lump sum pension you're thinking about taking out, you need to stay tuned for this next segment as we expose the fact that what you think might be free sometimes turns out not to be free at all. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. Wondering how much money you'll need to retire? Probably a lot less than you think. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and for the past 36 years, I've helped thousands of savers determine when to retire and how much money they'll need in retirement, and I can help you too. To meet in person at no cost or obligation, let me invite you to log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number on your screen. We look forward to talking with you soon. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. In keeping with our theme with this provocative question about things that you thought to be true that maybe turned out not to be true, I thought I would try in our remaining time to cover 3 different Tony in the Trenches I've assembled for you. So let's start with Tony in the Trenches number 1. This comes to us from Rick out of Louisville. It says, Tony, I know you're a big fan of annuities, and over the years, whenever I asked my representative who handles my 401k plan about annuities, he discouraged me from investing in them until recently, when out of the blue, this same 401k rep pitched the idea of me putting some of my money with them into an annuity. Any idea why he changed his mind on annuities? Yeah, I'll tell you why he changed his mind on annuities, because billions of dollars as we speak are flowing out of these 401ks and into annuities. Well, why is this? Well, because first of all, Wall Street can bash these products all they want to, but annuities, assuming they are fixed annuities, are very safe. You can turn them into mailbox money, and quite frankly, it's just like any financial product. There's a lot of money to be made in annuities. So yeah, if you can't beat them, I guess you can join them. So yeah, you're going to see more and more of these big, huge custodians that usually never mention annuities are going to start selling annuities because they are very, very valid products. The next Tony in the Trenches, this is a real interesting one. This comes to us from Carol in Lexington. She says, Tony, and this gets back to the old maxing out the 401k plan, okay? Tony, I'm putting a lot of money into my 401k plan, and this is the key. While it appears to be growing in value, how do I determine if the stock market, that's where she's investing her money, is impacting the actual value? So we actually have, and this is interesting because I've got one of Carol's statements here. Again, we're changing the names to protect the innocent. And let's kind of go over this. So remember, we've got to ask ourselves, if we're putting all this money into a 401k plan, if our employer is matching it, and a lot of people call that free money, well, we're going to see that may not really be free money at all. In fact, I would say that while the 401k is a great savings tool, this free money that's being offered is kind of letting the 401k employer off the hook. What I mean by that is they don't have to offer a pension plan, which were very expensive, like the ones my granddad had. And then secondly, they're not under any obligation to keep this match going. In fact, I've had several people come to me that during the pandemic, many employers suspended this free money. So we've got to determine if this is really free. Okay, so we start up here with a beginning balance of $40,687. And notice that Carol put in throughout the last year $7,755. And if we break down those deposits, of the $7,775, $6,703 was her money, and there's the quote free money offered by the employer of $1,072. And all is well in Mudville until we have a stock market crash like we did this past year. And you'll notice something here, which Carol didn't know how to read these darn statements. A change in value. Well, what's that all about? If you had $40,000 and put $7,700 in there, roughly you'd think you'd have about $48,000, but no, notice the deposits and notice the losses. In fact, the free money the employer just gave you went down by $680. So now how does all this play out? Well, beginning of the year you had $40,000, you got $44,000, and many of you on the surface are saying, I made money. I've got more money in there. Well, gosh, well, sure you did. Look how much money you put in there, and look how much money was lost right here, okay, as it came over here, as a result of a stock market downturn. Oh, incidentally, that QNEC, let's see, I had to look that up. I've never seen that in my life. It stands for Qualified Non-Elective Contribution. I thought, what the heck is that all about? Well, basically, apparently what that means is the employer was supposed to put in more money. They made a mistake, and luckily they put it back in there, but who knows if it would have gotten back in there. So that was a newbie. All right, so that just goes to prove to you that this free money doesn't even include the amount of taxes you're going to owe, the fees, future risk. So this can be a real problem and may or may not help you whatsoever in retirement planning. All right, let's go to another Tony in the Trenches. I like this one. Tony, now that I'm nearing retirement, by the way, this comes up with a lot of people that have just gotten through retirement or into retirement. Now they're sitting there with these 401k plans. They've had all this risk, and it's the same thing Bill in Jeffersonville, Indiana is asking. When I'm at this stage in life, I'm not 40 or 45 or 50, when you're getting ready to retire or in retirement, the question is, how much risk should you take? And then the real question is, should you take any risk whatsoever? So to answer that question, this is a little exercise I used to do in workshops when I did all the free educational workshops I did years ago. And it really is helpful to help get your mind wrapped around this idea of why in the world are many of you savers taking so much risk, listen, when you don't have to? Well, probably because you've been told by the financial world and entertainers and everybody else that in order to make it in retirement, you got to have boatloads of money and you're going to have to be willing to take a lot of risk in order to get the growth you're going to need for the future. So let's imagine we have certain products over here, all right? And even if we go back in the last 20 years of the Dow, and whatever they say the average return has been, let's say it's 7%, all right? On the surface, that's a good average rate of return, but you're retired now, or you're getting ready to retire, and we got to remember, I'll use red for effect, that average doesn't include what might happen to the account now if it goes down and what's going to happen to your retirement. You see the risk here. I always remind people in retirement, while you might go back part-time or something like that, I have clients do that all the time, who wants to go back to work full-time when losing 40 or 50% of their value, which happened in 2008? I don't think that's what you want to do. So then we come over here to what I call safe products. And this would be, for the most part, there might be a little bit of risk, but let's just assume there's no risk. We've got risk over here. And these products, though, let's say are only on average going to earn you about 2%. And if you've been listening to the world's ways and you got to have all this money and you're going to have $1 million or $2 million or whatever this exorbitant number is that they're telling you everybody's got to have, well, you know intuitively that you're not going to be able to make it on 2%. But when you meet with somebody like us at Tony Walker Financial, we're going to take a different track. We're going to use our written game plans. We're going to use this 38 years of experience that I'm working with all these people, and we're going to rely on something called the 3 halves of life. Something I noticed years ago, that as people age, as people grow older, they just spend less money. So this whole narrative that you're going to need more and more money as you age, quite frankly, in 99% of the cases I've seen, is false. So let's stay with this then. So the question, remember we had a provocative question at the beginning, this is a provocative question here. All right, here it goes. You ready? So what if Mr. Jones, okay, I'm not telling you to do this, but what if we put 100% of your life savings on the no risk side? It only earned you around 2%. However, all this money over here was allowing you to accomplish all of your goals and objectives, gave you plenty of money in retirement, barring some sort of crazy financial catastrophe like a healthcare, but I'm just talking about living a comfortable lifestyle. Why, here's the question, why would you ever put money at risk? Now let that stew just a minute. Let me repeat the question. If we at Tony Walker Financial could accomplish all of your goals and objectives without taking a bunch of risk, why would you ever move money over and start taking risk? And some people I've asked this question to said, well, that's a foolish question, Tony. I would never take any risk if you could guarantee me that I'd be okay financially. Now, and this is not a wrong answer. This is where everybody's situation is different. Through our Charles Schwab platform, one reason we have the Charles Schwab platform, because it does contain an element of risk, is to give complete access of this money to our clients so they won't have penalties to get it out. But secondly, some people say, you know what, Tony, I'm okay with risk over here. Maybe I would split it this way. I might do 20-80, something like that. So that's the real rub that I have with the financial world now. There is no one size fits all. What you have to do is examine the entire situation of what you're wanting, examine your finances, and hopefully someone's looking at all this that's trained in the art of retirement planning. So if you don't have somebody like that that's sitting in your corner working for you, a fiduciary that is not working for these big companies but trying to do what's in your best interest, let me invite you to go right now to our website at TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and while there, just click on the Let's Get Started button. Now, when you click on that button, something interesting happens. First of all, we do not share your information with outsiders of Tony Walker Financial. It stays confidential to our organization. We are going to then contact you, and we're going to set up what we call a free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And then, after having a phone call with myself, if it warrants, I will be happy to meet with you in person at either our Louisville, Bowling Green, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So do it now. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started. Or if you like, you can simply call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, what does the Bible have to say about this idea of truth? Well, there is one verse of Scripture that hit me head on some 31 years ago, and it's a comment Jesus made about the truth and who we are to follow to find it. Good stuff coming your way? I know I'm going to need a cup of coffee for this one. I'll be right back. With the uncertainty of the stock market, our nation's debt spiraling out of control, and inflation running rampant, now may be the best time to consider moving your 401k to safer territory. My name is Tony Walker, and for over 38 years I've made it my life's mission to help savers worry less about money, and I want to help you too. To speak with me at no cost or obligation, why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or simply call the toll-free number on your screen. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. Living life as youngsters in the 60s, each and every Sunday morning, Dad would drag me and my brother Marty away from another exciting episode of Tom and Jerry and off to hear another boring sermon about God and Jesus at a nearby church. As you can see from this picture of us ready for church, me and Marty are less than enthused about hearing God's truths and more interested in wondering how Tom and Jerry turned out. Fast forward to my teenage years when I opted out of being true to attending church each Sunday morning and instead hanging out with Uncle Eddie, washing and waxing our favorite cars. And then, a few years later, I get a tad more serious in my search for the truth while attending college and taking as many psychology, philosophy, and anthropology courses as one could afford to take. As my instructors confidently shared their truths of man's free will and us evolving from whatever we might have evolved from, I was certainly convinced that this God I had heard about as a youngster was certainly not true. Oh, funny, during my time in college, my biggest preoccupation was Carl Jung's masterpiece, Memories, Dreams, and Reflections. In fact, even to this day, I really believe that I'm pretty good at interpreting other people's dreams, or something I call OPD.
Tony has been reading a lot of Carl Jung lately, specifically about dream interpretation. He's overheard me talking about some of my weird dreams, so he called me down to his office and asked me to describe them. Okay, sure. Well, there's the one where I'm being chased by orangutans, the one where I'm in an episode of Scooby-Doo, the one where my toilet exploded, the one where Mary Beth beat me up, and then I lost my Subaru, the one where my gym teacher yelled at me, the one where my hands were feet, the one where Tony had a nose ring, the one where I was like 2 inches taller, the one where I ate Fruit Loops, and I hate Fruit Loops. Eventually, Tony had heard enough. He had deducted the common theme in all of my dreams.
You need more protein in your diet, Tiger.
I wasn't really sure where he was coming from, but I accepted it and thanked him for the help. When suddenly, he started growing into an 8-foot ogre, except he looked like my sister. And wait a minute.
But then, something at the age of 31 happened that changed my life forever in terms of what I thought to be true, turning out not to be as what I thought to be true. Here's what was true at that time. A father rotting away in a nursing home as a result of Alzheimer's. Another truth, experiencing the failure in business, and the truth that I was pretty much dead broke and not able to provide adequately for my family. Although, thankfully, at this very time, there was a truth that was very, very true and near to my heart, and that was my wife, Susan, working nights and weekends as a nurse, for us to be able to survive that period of time. In other words, during the first 31 years of following the world's truth, leading to nowhere, until this unique day in June of 1991 arrived, ironically, 31 years ago, as I've just turned 62. You see, back in June of 1991, because of some faithful individuals who had been pointing me to God's Word, God intervened. And He intervened with the exact same words I had heard as a child going to church, which at the time did not ring true, but now did. In fact, the most powerful verse of them all is found in John 14:6 when I read where Jesus says, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me." The great writer C.S. Lewis reminds us that upon hearing such a bold declaration of truth, each of us is obligated to respond in only one of three ways. Either this man Jesus is a liar, a lunatic, or Lord. Well, thank God I changed my mind from thinking Jesus was a liar and a lunatic to now trusting Him as my Lord. But Tony, you ask, what in the world does my decision as to what to call this man Jesus have to do with me and my money? Well, friend, it depends on whether your view and truths about money and how you're going to use and enjoy it before it's too late have been shaped by the world or shaped by God. You see, in meeting with more than 15,000 savers, here's a truth I've discovered. Without the helping hand of God's truth, if we're not careful, instead of controlling money, the money will start to control us. Which is why I wrote my latest book, Live Well, Die Broke, to remind savers that you really can't take this stuff with you, and in the end, all that matters is whether you believe who this man said he was or not. Just something to think about. Well, how about you, folks? You may be sitting there saying, you know, Tony, I've believed a lot of things about the financial world that I'm starting to wonder may not be true. And I like that part you talking about how to use and enjoy this money that I've worked so hard before it's too late. Well, I've got a question to ask you. Do you even have a trusted advisor in your corner who is trained in the art of retirement planning? A fiduciary who will meet with you face to face to help you figure out how to put a written game plan in place so that you and your loved ones can follow this through retirement? Well, if not, my question is, why not? My name is Tony Walker, and for more than 38 years, I've made it my life's mission to help savers worry less about money by setting up written game plans that they can follow and monitor not only when they retire, but through retirement. And to see more about how we work, it's absolutely no cost or obligation to do so. In fact, we call this the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And here's how you can take advantage of this free offer. First, by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and clicking on that Let's Get Started button. Or if the internet's not your thing, you can always call the toll-free number on your screen and tell whoever answers the phone that you want to talk to me personally about your situation. And then if it warrants, that's right, the owner of the company, 38 years of experience, I'll be happy to meet with you in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. TonyWalkerFinancial.com or give us a call at the toll-free number on your screen. Well, we're out of time today, but you remember, between now and next week when we see each other again, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.